Indonesia's president lays out the country's priorities in the year ahead while touting the government's achievements in his second Independence Day speech. And we're joined by Dedi Dinarto. He's Associate Director at FGS Global. Thanks for joining us, Mr. Dedi. Now, priorities for Prabowo Subianto included, if we look at them, not any major course correction, but rather a moderate fine-tuning of existing policy.
Yeah, I think I agree with you. From the speech, we can see that the president is staying with the same broad policy strategy. The focus following the speech is more on fixing problems that have emerged during implementation. The free nutritious meals program is a good example. It remains one of his main priorities because it is closely linked to his electoral promise. At the same time, the president acknowledged that there have been problems in how the program has been delivered. So that suggests we're likely to see tighter supervision of the program. I also expect government to become more selective about where public resources are directed. So I would describe this as a period of correction within the same policy direction. The program will continue, but its implementation is likely to become more controlled.
The free meals program, many people were looking to see for more detail and clarification on it. But there were other issues that many of us were keeping our eyes on, which include, for example, state-owned enterprises. That's one. And what would happen with the DSI. We did see some kind of fine-tuning on that. Do you see a larger pattern in terms of what Mr. Prabowo Subianto would look to when he talks about rectifying, correcting course? What would that involve for these two issues?
I think all these measures, whether it be the state-owned enterprises restructuring, as well as the role of the new state firm DSI, as you mentioned, all these measures point to the same broader theme, which is a stronger role for the state in the economy and a greater focus on protecting state revenue. You raised DSI, that is a good example. DSI has the authority to monitor exports of strategic commodities such as palm oil and coal. And during the speech, the president clarified that DSI will monitor these transactions rather than control the exports themselves. The government believes this will help identify under-invoicing and other practices that reduce revenue for the state. We are also seeing the same approach in the restructuring of state-owned enterprises and also the proposal for an ad hoc investigation on state-owned enterprises executives from the last 30 years to find out any past commercial decisions that may have caused state losses. So I think ultimately, this further supports the government's priority of cracking down on problems that lead to the state losing revenue.
Mr. Dedi, this specific phrasing, the DSI, so this new state export for managing the export of key commodities for now just a few in Indonesia, but with the potential to expand what would come under its purview. So to monitor, but not to take control. So Mr. Prabowo, aware, when he announced this in May, there was considerable concern, let's put it that way, on markets. Mr. Prabowo wanting to make clear it's monitoring, it's not in fact control. But if there are concerns, for example, for any foreign entity dealing in exports, they might be concerned that increased state oversight, prudent as it might be, might in some way increase transaction costs, make it more difficult for them to make money and therefore deter them from investing in Indonesia.
Yeah, I think the reason why at this stage the new state firm remains limited when it comes to authority just to monitor the export of strategic commodities is because there have been concerns from investors that the government will take over the overall management of the strategic commodities. And I think that spooked even local investors and company in terms of intervention from the Nantara. But I think the authority for this new state firm to control, to monitor the export will likely last until the end of this year. And there has been a discussion around further control of the exports in 2027, where the new state firm will become more involved in the process. But again, the details remain unclear, and we will continue to see how that will evolve.
All right, a final question here, Mr. Dedi, pardon me. Mr. Prabowo, confident that Indonesia can reach 6% GDP expansion this year, but the ultimate goal by 2029 is in fact 8%. And that, I think, by your own estimation, would have to include a greater injection of foreign direct investment. So Mr. Prabowo needs to send that message to get FDI up in Indonesia. How much would that contribute to Indonesia reaching its goal 6% this year, 8% by 2029? Final question.
Yes, I think there's quite a lot of continuity in the growth strategy from his speech. The policy priorities outlined in the speech are also familiar. The government continues to rely on programs linked to food and energy self-sufficiency, value-added industrialization, and village cooperatives. The Nantara will also continue to play a major role. I expect public spending and state-backed institutions to remain important drivers of growth. The government is likely to play a significant role in supporting economic growth next year. But again, whether this public spending will eventually translate into stronger activity in manufacturing and agriculture, which are pivotal sectors for job creation, remains to be seen. And whether that public spending will eventually reassure investors to invest more into the country, that remains to be seen.
So a final question, I repeat that, in fact, Mr. Dedi, if you're a foreign investor and you're sitting in a chair watching this speech, would you be convinced? Really final question.
Well, I think the speech provides a basis for reassurance, although confidence is likely to build gradually. First, the proposed deficit of 2.4% is below Indonesia's legal ceiling, and it is lower than the projected deficit for this year. That sends a positive signal that the government intends to maintain fiscal discipline while continuing to fund its priority programs. At the same time, the 6% growth target is ambitious, and the budget relies on a fairly strong increase in government revenue. So ultimately, looking from investors' point of view, they will look at whether the government can meet its revenue target, maintain the planned deficit, and provide consistent rules around the state's role in the economy. So that all will determine how durable the initial reassurance will be.
Oh, thanks, Dedi Dinarto, Associate Director at FGS Global, looking at Prabowo Subianto's almost 2-hour speech today in Parliament. Thanks for that.